Hello there everyone, and welcome to my new channel. This is the first episode of Transit Fantasy Maps Worldwide, a series in which I will, design transit fantasy maps and discuss them here. Today's episode brings us to Tampa Bay, Florida, a sunny metro area of 3.1 million people which, apart from a heritage streetcar and an airport people mover, has no rail-based public transit at all. So I'm going to design some myself. Now, you may be wondering, how would one go about doing such a thing? Well, when I design transit fantasy maps, I always follow a trusty three-step process. The first step is called where to go and what mode to use. This basically entails figuring out the termini of each route and which mode of transit will travel each one. I think that this Tampa Bay fantasy transit system should be multimodal, consisting of commuter rail, heavy rail/subway, and light rail, as well as the already existing streetcar and people mover. Also, many of the routes on my map will be at least loosely based on the ones on this similar fantasy map I found on the internet. Let's look at the different routes each mode that I listed will serve, starting with commuter rail. In America, commuter rail usually connects smaller cities and exurbs to a massive hub in the downtown of the central city in a metro area. For this Tampa Bay system, I figured out two commuter rail lines. Both will run out of Tampa Union Station and will run on pre-existing track. The first line is the interior line serving Brandon and Lakeland. The second line is the Gulf Coast line serving Bradenton and Sarasota. Meanwhile, subway and light rail systems often serve denser corridors and link city centers to inner suburbs. However, before we get onto that, we have to talk about the people mover. Many American cities have a system in which a people mover connects airport terminals and facilities to a rapid transit stop close to the airport. Based on this info, I thought that since Tampa Airport already has a people mover, it could simply be extended one stop to West Shore to form an intermodal hub there. Okay, back to the subway. I was thinking that since the Tampa Bay metro area has 3 central cities, there could be 3 subway lines each running between each pair of downtown areas. These lines could then be extended to serve things like the University of South Florida, the planned Brightline terminal in Ybor City, and several suburban towns north of Clearwater. I was also thinking of a light rail line going from the West Shore intermodal hub serving the Carrollwood area. Now that that's all done, we can move on to step 2. Exact alignments and station lists. This step is basically preparation for drawing a map to show the fantasy system. Basically, I figure out how each line will go from terminus to terminus and make a list of the stations it calls at along the way. Since I'd already thought about most of these lines before making this video, all I had to do was just figure out exactly where each station would be. However, some lines such as the Carrollwood LRT were a bit harder to figure out in terms of station location. Eventually, I had decided on where every line and station would go, so it was time to move on to the third and final step, drawing the actual map. Okay. How did I get here? Well, my original plan was to draw the map by hand, but I just couldn't do it. Luckily, I found out about this website called Metro Mapmaker that I used to design this, a Tampa Bay transit fantasy map styled like the Washington, D.C. Metro map. Let's go over this map then. First off, we have the 3 subway lines. I'm calling them the Ocean Blue, Sun Yellow, and Fern Green lines, because those names are unique and generally fit the area. The Ocean Blue line goes from the town of Tarpon Springs to downtown St. Pete via Clearwater and Largo. The Sun Yellow line goes from the university area to a place called Treasure Island via Busch Gardens, Ybor City, downtown Tampa, and downtown St. Pete. Lastly, the Fern Green line goes from Ybor City to Clearwater via Union Station, downtown Tampa, and the intermodal hub at West Shore City Center. Now on to the commuter rail lines. As I've mentioned earlier, the interior line will go from Union Station to Lakeland via Brandon, and the Gulf Coast line will go from Union Station to Sarasota via Bradenton, with some smaller intermediate stops as well. Lastly, let's discuss the other lines. The Carrollwood LRT will go from the aforementioned West Shore City Centre intermodal hub to Carrollwood, hence the name. Notable intermediate stops on that line include International Plaza and Raymond James Stadium. Staying in the West Shore area, next to discuss is the People Mover. The only difference from its current state in real life is that it terminates at West Shore City Centre instead of the rental car facility. To finish off, we have the Tico streetcar line, which has several differences from its current state. Firstly, stops 1 and 2, both part of historic Ybor Station. Also, the line terminates at Kennedy Station instead of its current downtown terminus. That concludes the first episode of Transit Fantasy Maps worldwide. More episodes will hopefully come in the future, along with other train-related series at some point. Have a great day, and thanks so much if you watched till the end. Bye.